Hello, everyone, and welcome to this very special program. My name is Lisa Levinson. I'm the campaigns director with In Defense of Animals, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to this program that we're having today for Activist Appreciation Month. This is the month of the year where we have special programs to honor your activism for animals. And this year, our theme is animal rescue. So we have a very unique presentation, and I will let our special guest tell you all about that. She is Isabella La Rocca González, and she is here with us today to do her special presentation on censored landscapes. Hi, Isabella. How are you doing today?
Hi, Lisa. Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you, Lisa and IDA for this honor. I'm so happy to share my work with all of you and to have the opportunity to learn from all of you. I'm just going to go right into sharing my screen. And then after the presentation, we'll come back together for a Q&A and a discussion. So also, I have a scratchy throat. So just forgive me if I have to take a little break to drink water or cough or whatever. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Are we good? Everybody seeing that? Lisa, you see that well?
Yes, perfect.
Yes, great. Okay, well, before we get started, I just want to make sure that everyone understands the Zoom interface. There's a bunch of buttons at the bottom of your screen, and those are really useful. There's your mute button on the left, so I am going to ask you to mute if that's necessary. I don't know in this format. You can also turn off your video if that's necessary. There's reaction buttons. I don't know if I'm going to be able to see those, so it might not matter. And most importantly, please type all of your questions and comments in the Q&A, because we are going to have a Q&A and a discussion. So just make sure you put those in there so we can make sure to have a good, robust Q&A and discussion. So before we start looking at any images, I would like to have a brief perceptual exercise. I'd like you to close your eyes and relax. Now I'd like you to imagine that we are all floating together in a pool. It's a lovely pool, super clean, and just the right temperature. As you float in the pool, you can feel the waves of the water lapping against your body. And imagine that just from the feeling of the waves of water against your skin, you can tell so much about everything going on in our pool. You can tell how big it is and the size and location and movements of the objects in it, and the size and location of the people and their movements. And you can even tell general things about the people, more or less their age and other details about their personalities, just from the feeling of the waves against your body. Just imagine that for a moment. So now, please open your eyes. In fact, what you've just imagined is actually what your eyes do all the time. Light waves are reflected from or transmitted through everything around you. And these light waves enter through your retina. And from that, you understand enormous amounts about who and what is around you. In fact, it is so much information that your brain filters out much of what it deems unnecessary or distracting. Light waves are part of the electromagnetic spectrum of waves represented in this image. Just like waves in the ocean, the longer the waves, the shorter the frequency. The longer, lower frequency waves are on the right side of the graph, and the shorter, higher frequency waves are on the left. Humans can only see a small part of the spectrum of electromagnetic waves that we call the visible light spectrum. which we perceive as color, and it's represented by that very small portion of the graph, which is underneath enlarged. All the colors of the rainbow, from violet through red, form the visible light spectrum. On either side of the visible light spectrum are ultraviolet and infrared light, which we can't see. Other species are able to see a longer part of the electromagnetic spectrum, and they perceive some of the colors we perceive differently than we do. So dogs, for example, perceive ultraviolet light waves, which humans can't see, and they perceive the color red differently than we do. Neither humans nor dogs see infrared light waves, though dogs can sense them with their amazing noses. This is a photograph of Kelsey. She was rescued from a battery cage egg facility and spent the rest of her life at Harvest Home Animal Sanctuary, where I took this photograph. As an artist, I would love to see the world as other species do. Chickens, for example, perceive all the colors humans do, and they also perceive ultraviolet and infrared light. In addition, they see more nuance in the hues that humans perceive. In other words, the colors they see are deeper and richer than what we see. These are photographs of the battery cage egg facility, where Kelsey spent her whole life until she was rescued. She was crammed into one of these cages along with 5 to 7 other hens, so that each hen had less rusted cage to stand on than the area of an 8.5 by 11-inch sheet of paper. To prevent injuries in such confined conditions, her beak was painfully seared off when she was just a chick with no anesthesia. A chicken's beak has about the same sensitivity as a human finger. Imagine your finger chopped off with no anesthesia. The cages are on the second floor so that the excrement falls to the first floor, where it is only cleaned periodically, so the smell is toxic. Kelsey was starved for extended periods until she lost 25 to 35% of her body weight to stimulate egg production. Also to stimulate egg laying, artificial light was alternated with periods of darkness. And this for a being who sees more and richer colors than we do. And yet these are all standard industry practices, business as usual. In February of 2012, Kelsey, along with the other 50,000 hens who were imprisoned in this facility, were abandoned by the owners without food or water. More than 2 weeks later, state officials discovered 17,000 dead, and they began gassing the others. At last, animal sanctuaries were able to negotiate to take custody of the survivors, and 4,460 hens were rescued. But even if she had not been abandoned, Kelsey would have been gassed or slaughtered when she no longer produced enough eggs to be profitable at 1 to 2 years old, which is much younger than her natural lifespan. I first photographed the abandoned facility a year after the rescue, which inspired my project, Censored Landscapes. I am so happy to announce that Censored Landscapes is due to be published as a book in November of this year. The book consists of photographs, well-documented research, poetry, and personal narratives to illuminate the web of connections between animal agriculture, animal suffering, environmental devastation, worker exploitation, human health, and social justice, including ecofeminism and anti-colonialism. The thing is, the great majority of farmed animals are hidden away inside warehouses or in remote locations. I've indicated their presence with the number of animals that have been or continue to be confined there. As you might imagine, these numbers can be difficult to obtain. The industry has a vested interest in suppressing awareness about the reality of these places. They've attempted to pass ag-gag laws in more than half of US state legislatures. These state laws criminalize photographing sites of animal agriculture. As of May 2023, they are still in effect in 6 states. The Animal Enterprise Terrorism Act is a federal law that criminalizes economic damage to an animal enterprise. This law is so vague and broad that journalists and photographers who expose the practices of these corporations can be prosecuted as terrorists. In other words, they can be lumped into the same category as Timothy McVeigh and the Unabomber. These laws are in violation of the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, which guarantees our right to free speech. As you may know, increasing numbers of farmed animal sanctuaries have sprung up in recent years. They are not zoos. An animal sanctuary's only purpose is the happiness and well-being of the animals who live there. They are marvelous places. The animals I photograph serve as ambassadors of their species. Their images are meant to personalize and individualize the 10 billion farmed animals every year in the United States alone who are bred, confined, and slaughtered. I made this photograph at Gotlandia Farmed Animal Sanctuary. This mama hen, unlike Kelsey, is like many hens held captive in backyards and small farm operations. These places are thought to be more humane than factory farms. But are they? First of all, much like humans, wild hens only produce about 12 eggs a year. There are no wild hens in the US. A hen kept for her eggs, whether in a battery cage, a cage-free farm, or a backyard farm, is bred to produce hundreds of eggs during her most fertile years, which causes osteoporosis, often with broken bones, ovarian cancer, and egg binding. Peritonitis and other reproductive disorders are also common. Can you imagine having hundreds of menstrual periods a year? Because they do not produce eggs, male chicks in hatcheries are killed shortly after birth by gassing, suffocation, or most often, grinding alive. 99% of all meat, dairy, eggs, and fish comes from factory farms. Farms that call themselves cage-free, free-range, organic, family-owned, grass-fed, sustainable, or humane certified claim to be better. But investigations of cage-free egg farms, for example, expose such crowded, filthy conditions that birds are crushed to death or buried alive in their own feces. The term free range has no legal definition and is effectively meaningless. Organic animal agriculture is just as speciesist and even more environmentally destructive than conventional animal agriculture. Organic egg production, for example, requires at least 20% more feed, which means more land, water, and other resources. Over 200 million farmed turkeys are slaughtered every year in the US. 200 million. Unlike chickens, turkeys are native to the United States, but only 5 million wild turkeys are left. The population of wild turkeys continues to decline. Over 99.8% of farmed turkeys are confined in warehouses where each animal has between 2.5 to 4 feet of space for their entire lives. The home territory of a wild turkey, on the other hand, can range from 400 to 2,000 acres or more, and may include fields, marshes, pastures, and forests. My friend Henry was rescued from the torturous life of a turkey raised for food. I photographed Henry at Harvest Home Animal Sanctuary. When I'd come to visit, Henry would promenade over to me and greet me by placing his dinosaur foot on mine and leaning against me. He loved when I scratched under his wings. He loved when I talked to him or sang to him. Sorry, I get a little teary when I think about Henry. We got to be good friends. Henry was bred to grow over twice as large and twice as quickly as is natural for a wild turkey. Though his wild cousins can fly an average of 55 miles an hour, because of his size, even when freed, Henry and all turkeys bred for food cannot fly at all. Also, because of their size, it's not cost-effective for farmed turkeys to mate naturally, so they are subjected to a repulsive process euphemistically called artificial insemination. I won't subject you to a full description of the process. Suffice it to say that it involves a worker stimulating the genitals of both the male and the female turkey. Pigs are also intensively confined. Each pig raised for food is entitled to less than 3 square feet of space. Farmed pigs are also bred using artificial insemination, which also involves a worker stimulating the pig's genitals. For most of her adult life, a female breeder pig is locked in a metal gestation crate so small she cannot turn around. She will chew on the bars, wave her head incessantly, and manifest other signs of severe distress. While she's lactating, she and her piglets are caged in a metal farrowing crate, also too small for her to even turn around. Then her piglets are taken from her, and she is again artificially inseminated. Farmed animals produce a lot of excrement, but in most cases, the law does not require that the waste be treated. In the US, farmed animals produce 130 times more waste than humans. Again, not regulated. This produces dangerous air, water, and soil pollutants and is directly to blame for the growing marine dead zones that are killing aquatic life. Dead zones also produce toxins that affect human and all animal health. Confined animal feeding operations also expose animals, workers, and neighboring communities to elevated levels of hydrogen sulfide, ammonia, and particulate matter, which results in respiratory problems and other disease. Though environmentalists have fought courageously against the fossil fuel industry, the movement has almost entirely ignored animal agriculture, which is responsible for 18% to 51% of greenhouse gases, more than all the cars, trains, planes, and all the transportation in the world. Animal agriculture is a leading cause, if not the leading cause, of climate change, deforestation, ocean acidification, habitat destruction, loss of biodiversity, and mass species extinction. This is a photograph of my friend Otto. Otto is a sweet, gentle being who escaped slaughter as a young pig in July of 2017 and became a media celebrity. He was seen at a McDonald's parking lot where people threw food at him. He found a park where he could hide out. 2 kind, caring women managed to lure him into a humane trap with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Then he was adopted by Good Acres Animal Sanctuary, where I photographed him. Diana Schaffner, the founder of Good Acres, told me that after he was adopted, she received hundreds of emails thanking her for rescuing Otto. This is not unusual. You may have heard other stories of escaped farmed animals. Almost always, people rally so that the animal is saved from the industry. This is a testament to the importance of rescued farmed animals and animal sanctuaries in the animal advocacy movement. By all accounts, the majority of workers at farmed animal sanctuaries are women. Sanctuary staff and volunteers make a home for thousands of the rare survivors of the animal agricultural industry. Making a home or a sanctuary involves innumerable jobs: feeding, cleaning, organizing, and on and on. Beyond physical labor, making a home or a sanctuary requires caring about everyone who lives there. Sanctuary workers rehabilitate, care for, love, protect, and support animals in sanctuaries as though they are their own children. Women are the backbone of the animal advocacy movement. And yet, most well-paid positions of authority are accorded to men from privileged backgrounds. And I just want to take a moment to thank all of you sanctuary workers from the bottom of my heart. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Anyway, these kinds of patriarchal inequities aren't limited to animal advocacy. They're pervasive in social justice movements and in society in general. Censored Landscapes has been deeply informed by an eco-feminist ethic of care. An ethic of care recognizes that humans and animals exist within interconnected ecological systems. The connections between animal advocacy, feminism, workers' rights, human health, the environment, and decolonization are the essence of ecofeminism. In creating Censored Landscapes, I've researched and explored all of these connections and more. Another idea spawned by feminists is intersectionality. The term was introduced by Black feminist law professor Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989. But the concept was in existence by the late 1960s, when ethnically diverse feminists observed that oppression experienced by minority, disabled, or poor women is different and often exponentially greater than that experienced by white middle-class women. The intersectional experience of oppressions is more powerful than the sum of oppressions that impact an individual. Ecofeminism and intersectionality suggest that all forms of oppression, including that of non-human animals, exist within a hierarchical system of domination. Resistance to oppression must be in response to all forms of oppression, including sexism, racism, classism, heteronormativity, colonialism, ableism, ageism, environmental destruction, and speciesism. Women, especially women of color and indigenous women, are at the forefront of a better way of approaching agriculture. For example, Navdanya is a women-centered movement for the protection of biological and cultural diversity. They form a network of seed keepers and organic vegetable producers in India. The Indigenous Women of the Americas, Defenders of Mother Earth Treaty Compact, was signed on September 27, 2015 by women of indigenous tribes that include the Ponca Nation, Cree Nation, Yaqui, Choctaw, Cherokee, Quechua, and Sapara. I'd like to end my presentation with an inspiring quote from that compact. We invite all women of the world to join us, your indigenous sisters of the Americas, to put a stop to the destruction. No more fossil fuel infrastructure or extraction. No more genetically modified organisms. No more toxins in our water, soil, and air. And no more commodifying and privatizing of the earth, air, water, soil, and natural systems. And I would like to specify no more commodifying and privatizing sentient animals. Thank you so very much for your attention and for caring about this issue that receives so little attention in the media. I'll also type the links in the chat so you can copy and paste. And now I'm going to stop my share. So I'm wondering if I can see the participants, Lisa. Is that possible? I mean, I can see a list, but I don't see any faces.
Yeah, this is a webinar, so it's different than a meeting. So that means that you're able to be presenter, and we do have people who can type into, as you requested earlier, the Q&A section. That's going to be the easiest way for us to find your questions. You can also type into the chat box, and if for some reason the chat, I can also make sure that the chat is activated for everyone.
Yes. Oh, I don't know that
That might have been. I
might not be able to do that.
Oh, no, I can do it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so no worries. Apologies to those in the Zoom. I meant to activate it earlier. It's not automatic with this platform. So if you'd like, you can add into the chat box any questions, or even better, use the Q&A feature. That's super helpful for us. And I want to take a moment and thank Isabella for this informative presentation. And you shared so many details that were likely new for many people. And we appreciate that you included the intersectionality and of some of these oppressions that happen in these environments where animals are really abused and denied their natural behaviors, and also people are struggling in these same environments. So thank you. We've got some wonderful chat saying it was very moving and inspiring. So that's helpful to know. And there is a question. We have Jacqueline. So if you'd like to,
I don't see any questions, but maybe only you can see them.
Sure, sure. Jacqueline, you're welcome to
Oh.
talk if you'd like.
Yes. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, all righty.
Hi, Jack.
Hi, Isabella. Thank you, Lisa, for hosting this online event. So I'm wondering what this is wonderful, this presentation, and you're just such a talented photographer to begin with. And your choice of what to take pictures of is very unique. You have a special niche. I'm just wondering if are you planning to tour, go on tours, or do you have like Will Tuttle and his wife Madeline, Dr. Will Tuttle, very active online twice a month with his World Peace Diet. So I'm a member of that, the facilitator. So I'm wondering, do you have like a van or something where you could really go out to towns, to cities, and maybe other parts of the country live to give your presentations?
I hope to be able to do that for sure. When the book comes out, I am hoping to be able to travel to various cities. I lived for 21 years in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I have so many friends there and so many activists. And so I'm hoping to go there, hopefully do a book signing or two. Also, perhaps Chicago. I'm currently living in central Kentucky, so also Lexington, Louisville, they're real close by. And I have friends in Los Angeles. So those are the places that I've got priority. But whatever opportunity opens up, I'm open. I really want to get the message out, as I'm sure so many of you understand. So, the more the merrier, the more people I can reach, the happier I will be. And by the way, I loved the World Peace Diet. I love that book. And
Oh, yes. Well, Jacqueline, I happen to live in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I would definitely encourage you. A book tour. Oh, Dr. Neil Bernard, yes, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. I'm sure you know. He's come out with a book now, and the title of it just escaped me. Is it along about the vegan diet, certainly, and he's he's going to be here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and April 24th. April 24th, he'll be here. I'm not sure the time. Wouldn't it be great if you could somehow wangle? I mean, he's doing a book tour. It's just an idea for you to do the same with your own book. And then if the two of you happen to be doing your book and your times overlap in the San Francisco Bay Area, I'm just giving you a heads up. I know the date that they've said is April 24th. So you can keep that in mind just in case.
yeah, perhaps mine's not due to come out until November if all goes as scheduled. But that doesn't stop, his will already be out. So that might be a great kind of event, with several books coming out.
Oh,
So
yeah. I see your cat in the background.
that's my
What is she
beloved.
cat?
She's 18 years old and going strong.
Oh, what's her name?
My cats all have first and last names. Her name is Chicha Larina, which
Oh,
Chicha is
beautiful.
kind of tubby in Italian. She's always been a little tubby.
Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Isabella.
Well, thank you very much. I
Yeah.
hope to see you in San
Yeah.
Francisco, Berkeley, or somewhere near there.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yes. Thanks.
So there
Thank you
are,
so much.
yeah,
We do have a couple of other questions.
yes.
Um, so we've got from Serenity, how can an ecofeminist lens and the awareness of intersection of oppressions help us bring about animal liberation faster? Or can it help us bring about animal liberation in general?
Oh, that's a great question, Serenity. Serenity is such a beautiful name. Um, yes. Well,
Yeah.
ecofeminism is kind of makes the connection, as I said earlier, very specifically between nature
Oh,
or the oppression of nature and the oppression of women. And especially now that I think most, if not all people, are aware of the destruction that humanity has wreaked on the earth, that connection is really important. And you can see also the connection between the oppression of women and the oppression of animals. I mean, you've all heard women called names that are the same as farmed animals, sow, hen, you know,
oh,
women have been oppressed in a very similar way as animals. And I think this leads to the understanding that none are free until all are free.
oh,
We're all connected. I'll probably misquote Dr. Martin Luther King, but he said the same thing. Injustice in anywhere is injustice everywhere. And so it all is the same. We just have to work for liberation. And, you know, whatever thread you choose will lead to the liberation of all. And again, as I mentioned, the ecofeminist ethic of care, that is a very unique, in my research, perspective on feminism. You know, when I was coming up in the 70s and 80s, you know, we were told, oh, you can be anything you want. You can be a lawyer, you can be an airline pilot. But boys weren't told, oh, you can be anything. You can care for children. You can make a home. You know, somehow women's work was not considered glorious enough for everyone to aspire to. And I think that really I think that has to change fundamentally. I think that caring for everyone is at least as important or more important than being a CEO or a lawyer or an airline pilot or any of the formerly male occupations. So yeah, so I'm a eco-feminist through and through, and I think ecofeminism really contains a lot of wisdom that we can use toward liberating all animals. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Isabella, for diving deeper into that question. We have a few more. We've got, well, one question is a simple one, which is how to obtain your book when it comes out.
Great question. Well, it will be all the major, then, you know, Amazon and hopefully Barnes and Noble. I will have copies. So when I come to your city, I will be happy to sign. And I'm hoping to have, and I don't know if I hope I don't disappoint if I can't get this together, but my grand plan is to have book signing events that are also fundraisers for animal sanctuaries, where 10% of the proceeds go to the animal sanctuary, and most particularly the animal sanctuaries who were, you know, the caretakers of whom were so generous in letting me come and spend time at their sanctuary. So hopefully in one of those venues, you'll be able to find the book. Hopefully close to mid-November, if all goes well.
Thank you. And we are very excited about this book. I can't wait to see it myself. We do have some other questions I just want to share with you, if that's okay. So more of a longer question, but I'll share parts of it. So Evan is saying that they agree with you about the exploitative food system and with ending fossil fuel consumption. But how do we transition to a more humane systems? And in conjunction with that, how do we transition to less inhumane and destructive systems? And is that in progress? How do we fund this transition? So really looking at the systemic issue. And for example, with the ag lobbyists whose wealth and power are used to protect the status quo and the profits on the board with this. So just curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I get frustrated and fight off despair sometimes thinking about this. It's clear that those in power or most of those in power, I can't speak for all of them. I think there are some sincere people in power, but the great majority of those in power are motivated really mostly, if not completely, by the profit motive. And that is almost always at odds with more humane, compassionate systems. So I don't have a good answer for you. I think that the fact that you are all here and that we are all together and that we are talking about this is a big step in the right direction. There are organizations, and the name slips my mind right now, but there's an organization specifically lobbying against animal agriculture and working to get rid of those kinds of lobbies, or at least mitigate them. And you know, maybe I will. I wish I could remember the name. I think it's IFA. Does anybody know? If you know the name of this organization, please let us know. But as much as possible, we need to align ourselves with those kinds. Thank you. Agriculture Fairness Alliance, AFA. Look them up, and they give a lot of really good information about the subsidies. I spend a whole page, no, more than a whole page. I spend a whole lot in my book talking about the economic implications and reality of animal agriculture, and it is heinous the amount of subsidies that are given to animal agriculture, the amount, the revolving door of the people in power in animal agriculture and the people in power in government. They're often one and the same person. So I don't have a good answer for you. I wish I did. And unfortunately, it seems that the most compassionate people seem to be the ones that don't get put into power. So we just have to do everything in our power. You know, of course, we can do everything in our power personally. Plant-based diet. I'm a vegan. I do make a distinction between veganism and a plant-based diet. You know, vegan has a very specific definition where you, as much as possible, do not contribute to the exploitation of any animal, human or non-human. Plant-based diet is simply how you eat. But no matter how whatever you call it, boycotting this industry is a huge step. And environmentally, I actually heard on NPR, it was a Living on Earth program, which is an environmental program. And they were interviewing a woman, I'm sorry, I've forgotten her name, but she was just, it was terrible, the despair, the way that the people in power are just not protecting us or the earth or, anything really except their profits. And then she said, but we don't have to depend on these people in power. We can make a change ourselves. And the most important thing that any individual can do to protecting the earth and mitigating climate change is to adopt a plant-based diet. That is the single most effective action anybody can take. Yeah, you can get an electric car, costs a bundle. You can, get solar panels, costs a bundle, et cetera, et cetera. All of those things are great. But adopting a plant-based diet actually turns out to be cheaper, healthier, and much better all around. So it's a win-win-win. And that we don't have to depend on these people in power. I mean, you bring up so many great things, the 26-story factory farm in China. It's just, I don't even allow myself to think about it because the nightmarish images that come up in my mind are not healthy for me to have. I just, whatever I can't do anything about, I try to block it out. My heart just cries, bleeds for those animals. They are every bit as sentient as we are, and they suffer every bit as much as we do. So I'm sure I'm in many cases preaching to the converted, but it bears repeating that this atrocity must end. Thank you so much, Evan, for your question.
Yeah, and there's a few more popping up. So I want to thank everyone for your questions as well. Those are very intriguing ones. So one of them is about how your work has changed since the enactment of these ag-gag laws, and how do you manage to photograph these factory farms given all those risks?
So I'm a coward. I did not photograph in any states where ag-gag laws were in effect. And for the most part, I stayed off. I did not trespass. You can see the landscapes were taken from a distance. Not that didn't get me in trouble sometimes because, any kind of curiosity even about these places is viewed as, trying to impinge on their profits. So that kept me pretty safe. Not always. I quickly learned that I needed to go with a companion, and you know who you are. Those of you who accompanied me, my heartfelt gratitude, came with me, acted as my lookout, as my emotional support, et cetera, et cetera. And all these ag-gag laws were in effect when I was working on this project. I just avoided states where they were in effect. So that was my cowardly way of staying away. I have the greatest admiration for photographers who actually go into these farms and document the conditions. I'm not that person. I'm a good girl, 12 years of Catholic school. I don't like to break the rules. I get this sinking feeling like, oh, somebody's not going to like me. So I just don't have the emotional bandwidth to witness that kind of suffering. I just don't. Even what I was able to do required a fair amount of emotional processing. I just wasn't able to do it. But thank goodness for those activists who are rescuers and investigators. They're the greatest.
Well, all of our skills and talents are needed to help bring about this revolution for the animals. And so we appreciate what you're doing and your perspective on how you're doing this, bringing this academic focus and really reaching out to the general public. It's so, so important, Isabella.
I must say that when I learned the reality of animal agriculture, I was so horrified. I thought, if I do nothing else in my life but change this one little bit, I will have lived a good life. And so that's what I'm trying to do.
Oh, well, thank you for doing that. And we have a few questions and as well. Some of them are a little trickier. So, for example, one is about cell cultured meat and if you think it might change the paradigm.
Great question. I've been following all of those innovations. I am not interested in eating it at all. The thought of eating any animal products is so gross to me. I have no desire whatsoever. But I do have cats, and my cats are not vegan. I understand there's really good arguments for feeding cats a vegan diet. But I can't bring myself to do it. I am their guardian. I feel like I need to care for them in a way that is most natural for their system. Unlike us, they are obligate carnivores. I don't judge anyone who decides against feeding meat to their cats, but I can't do that myself. But I just look forward to the day when cell cultured meat is affordable, because I will certainly feed my cat cell cultured meats. Um, and other than that, I mean, I don't know. There are good arguments on either side as concerns human diet. There are now cell cultured meats that do not rely on the bovine cells, that are completely humane, meaning that they do not rely on animals, from what I've read. And even if they do, the scale is just minuscule compared to the atrocity of confined animal feeding operations and factory farms. Um, I mean, there's a lot of evidence that eating animals is extremely unhealthy for humans, that it is killing us. And so I can't say I'm a proponent of cell cultured meat for humans, because I don't want people to get sick and die from it. But on the other hand, there are people who are convinced that they cannot live without it. And it seems like a better solution than what the current system is to me.
Thank you very much again for taking that kind of tough question for many of us vegans, and we appreciate your thoughtful answer. And I think we might have a couple more questions to review. And one is about looking at some of the more like language that have come from the farmed animals, the way that you described about women being called a hen or such, those kind of connections. And one of them is about the word for female dogs being bitches is another one of those words, but these sorts of insulting references. Just wondering if that is on your radar as part of what you hope to address with your book.
Yeah, I mean, I think language can influence thought as much as thought influences language. And if we can, you know, change our language, we come a step further to changing our thoughts and our behaviors. I find myself guilty of these. I'm trying to be as aware as possible of speciesist language, But the other day I found myself saying, well, they get pigeonholed. And I was like, no, no, that's not, there's just so much speciesist language in our language, in English, in languages, that it takes a moment to be aware. And really, it just comes down to be aware. I would say I've been on both sides of the issue where, I've heard people use speciesist language and, and I cringe and I go, don't use that. Don't use that word. Don't use the word bitch. But then I've been on the other side where I mistakenly use like pigeonhole. I mistakenly use speciesist language. And I think that kindness is the most important element in this equation. That if you have the opportunity to talk with someone about it, to do it as kindly as possible, without shaming or denigrating the person in any way. And we don't often have those opportunities, but if you have that opportunity, you can really kindly enlighten them. But mostly we can be aware ourselves. I think there's a Facebook group specifically about speciesist language. Yeah, someone in the chat just brought up owners. I never use the word owner when it comes to my cat. I don't think I've ever thought of myself as their owner, even before I became vegan or became really aware of the relationship between humans and non-human animals. I think companion animal is probably the best way to use it. I kind of like pet because it's so affectionate, but I know that there are people who object to that, so I don't really use it except, between me and them. Yeah, I think most importantly, individually, the more we're aware of it and the more we stay away from that kind of language, we can model by behavior, model by our actions.
Mm.
And your cat probably thinks she owns you. Yes, all three own me.
Yeah, and just wanted to share with everyone this concept is really important to In Defense of Animals because our founder, Dr. Elliot Katz, he started this Guardian initiative, which was asking people to look closely at their language and to definitely change that ownership from one to a guardian.
Yes.
And there's a question that I would like to ask you before we close up our wonderful presentation by you. One is, does your book make visual contrast between the sometimes idyllic looking farms from the outside and also what is going on in reality for millions of confined animals?
That was I'm glad that you asked that. And I think that you may observe that in some of these images. I think art for me is integral to the idea of beauty. And we can debate all day and all night about what beauty is and all that, and we don't have to do that. But for me, beauty is a way of kind of inviting you in to become aware or to look at something that you might otherwise not want to deal with. And some of these places from the outside are real, cared for. I think I showed the pig farm, lovely exterior, this manicured lawn, a beautiful day. It was very pastoral. Meanwhile, inside there were 8,900 pigs, and they were about to be taken away, and you could hear, I was quite a distance away, and you could hear the cries of those pigs from where I was. So what was happening inside was in stark contrast to what you saw from the outside, which was this kind of farm with, manicured lawns and clouds in the sky, blue sky. So that is very much my intention, is to show that contrast.
Thank you. That actually reminds me of in the Los Angeles area, we had a Farmer John slaughterhouse, which was closed down, but before that, it had this mural on it about farmed animals, and then inside was all of the torture that was going on. So I think there's a couple of maybe we have a time for one more question. I'd like to invite Joe, if you would like to ask your question. You can unmute yourself.
Joe William?
Yes.
Do you have a question, Joe?
Yeah, I was just wondering how to saute a steak.
Oh, well, that's not the kind of question that we'll be answering in this sort of format where we're
I have an answer.
sentience.
There are delicious, tasty steaks that are not made from meat that you can saute, and I guarantee you will be at least as satisfied. You'll feel better and you'll be healthier because of it. There's a ton of meat analogs. I mean, the most famous, of course, are Beyond and Impossible, but you can make them yourself. Seitan, tofu, great sources. And the meat itself, that from animals, really doesn't have much flavor. It's what you do to it that makes it delicious. Believe me, you don't have, I mean, raw meat is not a tasty thing, but what you do to it is what makes it tasty. So if you take these plant products and you prepare them, I guarantee you'll be just as satisfied. Give it a try. You'll be happier, your body will be happier, the earth will be happier, and certainly the animals will be happier. Thanks for your question, Joe.
Oh, thank you, Isabella, for your open heart and your kindness. And so we do encourage that sort of compassionate conversation here at In Defense of Animals. I'd like to take a moment and just thank you for sharing your work with us today. And it's like a passion project and also your life's work. And we're so thrilled about your upcoming book, Censored Landscapes, and look forward to hearing more and sharing about your book tour as it comes up. And this was a very special program for our Activist Appreciation Month. And anyone who's interested in joining, we still have a couple more programs left for the month. You can go to idausa.org/activist month. And that'll be a good way to tune in. And we do have other ways to support your activism. We even have a 24/7 support line that is there for you with counseling and also resources that we provide. And so you can find that at 800-705-0425. And I'll put a little link in the chat about it too. Wondered if Isabella, you wanted to share anything else with everyone before we close out our program today?
No, I just want to thank you all for being here and for caring and for realizing that this has to change. That's really all I can say. I hope to see you when the book comes out somewhere in my travels.
Wow. Well, may we all meet again in that forum where we can support what you're doing and share it with others. And I just think your book and the title of it are so important, and really appreciate your approach through ecofeminism. It's something that we all want to embrace and learn more about. So thank you to everyone for joining, and I wanted to wish you a very happy Activist Appreciation Month. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for coming.